Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Kanak Kalita and I welcome you to this new session in the workshop Emerging Trends in Research Methodology. And this particular session or this group of sessions is called the Research Article Writing and Reference. So let us first understand what is a research article. A research article reports the results of an original research, assesses it, and assesses the contribution to the body of the knowledge in a given area and published in a peer-reviewed scholarly journal. A research paper is different than a research proposal, although the writing process is similar, and the research paper is intended to demonstrate the academic knowledge of a subject. Whereas the proposal, when you talk about research proposal, it is a persuasive piece, means to convince the audience uh, about the value of the research project, and it is means to be kind of a sales document in which they are asking you for some kind of funds in terms in a research paper, in a research proposal. Whereas the research article is a self-contained manuscript or is a self-contained piece of information or a piece of literature where you get the entire idea about a particular concept or about a particular research that the author has done, and it lists everything right from the introduction to the problem to the methodology that is used to the results that they have got and the interpretation of the results as well as a definite conclusion. And in most research papers we will also find some future direction or some future direction for the future researchers or readers who can work in particular area. That is also there in the research article. Now, the research article is generally uh, a very standardized document, and depending on which journal you are sending, it will vary. The outlay of the research article will vary a little, but overall, when you look at the overall functionalities of the research paper, they will not change. Okay, the overall functionalities of the research paper will not change, but depending on journal to journal, what the change that you will find is that uh, the way in which the research paper is arranged or the different headings of the research paper, that may be a little different from one journal to the different journal. So what is the importance of this publication? We have already talked a great deal about the different kinds of journals and the different kinds of indexings and UGC care and all that. So what is the basic need for publication? So the publication or any research paper writing is an important part of the entire research uh, doing research, because once you develop something or once you are working in a particular area and you are developing a particular product or a particular knowledge in a particular area, it will not be of much use to the scientific community if you keep it locked in a vault. You need to publish it, you need to make it available to the general people or the readers or the other scientists so that they can learn from your work, they can learn from the mistakes of your work as well as the improvements of your work, and then they can work on this area and they can further improve it to uh, make the uh, to make some better improvements of the scientific community and the society as a whole. Okay, so that is why it is important to have publications. That is what you need to understand. So now, what is the definite process of a writing an article? While writing an article, we follow this particular methodology. This particular methodology is called the pre-writing phase. This particular methodology, it follows this particular sequence. So what happens is that you do something called the pre-writing, and then after pre-writing, you make a rough draft of the manuscript, and this rough draft you revise it, and this revised manuscript you edit it depending on which particular journal you are trying to send it, and then you send it to a journal and it gets published. Okay, so this is the entire process, or this is the total life cycle of a article or of a research article. This is the basic life cycle of a research article. So you start from the pre-writing phase to the drafting to the revision to the editing and then to the publication. Now, what basically constitutes of the pre-writing? So in the pre-writing, you do something called the brainstorming. And in this step, what you basically do is that, suppose say you have already conducted the research or you are conducting the research. So in the pre-writing phase, what you try to do is that you try to formulate uh, that what should be your core idea, or what is that you want to present in this research paper. Okay, suppose say you are working on a large project, or suppose say in any kind of project you are working, and then what are the things that you want to highlight to the world. Suppose say in the same research paper, suppose I will give my own example. Suppose I work in the area of soft computing as well as structural engineering. So one part is from, suppose say, in the field of computer science, whereas the other is from the field of mechanical engineering and civil engineering. So what I try to do is that when in the pre-writing phase, what I try to do is that I try to first figure out who is going to be the audience of my paper. Is it going to be civil engineers? Is it going to be mechanical engineers? Or is it going to be computer scientists? Okay. So that is what I try to first figure out. Other, and again, your readership can be mixed also. Okay. Your readership can be mixed also. They may be people like me who are working in multiple areas, who are working in a allied web of multiple areas. So depending on the audience and depending on the target journal, you have to formalize, or you have to visualize that, okay, this is going to be my presentation of the core idea. In this particular research paper, I am going to focus more on the mechanical side, or maybe on the computer science side, or maybe on the civil side. Okay, on which particular area or in which particular idea you want to project, that you have to make sure in the pre-writing phase, because based on that you will make all the different kinds of the arrangements, writing from starting from the data analysis to the presentation of the graphs to the other visualization. Everything you will do based on this central idea that who is going to be a reader and which journal you are going to target. Okay, so if your reader is going to be someone from mechanical engineering, so you are not going to give so much information about the computer science in that. You are going to give only that much information that a typical mechanical engineer can understand. You're not going to give, suppose say, all the small details that a computer scientist would want, but a mechanical engineer would not want. You will not give all those kind of small details. Okay, so based on that, you formalize a plan, and then you make something called the outline. Okay, the outline is like you write down the different subsections that you are going to present in the paper. For example, you are going to, any paper has some very standard subsections. Okay, it's like the abstract, like the introduction, like the materials and methods, and then the results and discussion and the conclusion. So in the materials and methods, you have to now again make some subheadings depending on which journal or what is your target audience. You have to present that, okay, I am going to write about the mechanical methods here, I'm going to write about the computer science methods that I've used here, or I am going to write about the civil engineering methods that I've used here. But depending, since my audience is from mechanical background, or since the journal that I'm targeting is predominantly mechanical, I am going to trim the computer science part. I am going to give only the basic information in the computer science part that you have to do. And again, in the results and discussion, in that also the outline, when you create an outline, you have to make sure that you focus in such a way that the mechanical part novelty or the mechanical engineering novelty of your paper is highlighted and not the other novelty. Because if the peer reviewer or if the reviewer is someone who is from mechanical engineering, he may not be able to appreciate the improvements that you have done in the computer science field. Okay, I hope you have got the basic idea that what I'm trying to say. So in the next phase, what you try to do is that you do something called the drafting and revision. So now, once you have detailed out the idea web, or you have detailed out the idea web, and you have done some kind of an outline, now you, in this drafting and revision phase, you try to clarify all the main ideas that you have. Okay, that these are the central ideas that I have, and I am going to highlight on them. Okay, for example, maybe you know that the introduction, in the introduction section, the last paragraph is generally reserved as a commentary for the entire manuscript, where you write down that these are the novelties of my particular area. So in this particular step, in the drafting and the revision step, you should clearly mention in that particular section that what are the main ideas or what are the main objectives of this paper and how you are going to achieve them. That you have to formulate in this step itself. Okay, and then you write down the basic paper, you write that the entire paper, and then when you're writing the paper, you have to also make some decisions regarding that what is going to be the flow of information, or what is going to be the organization of flow of information. Am I being coherent? Is the idea that I'm presenting, is it in coherence? Okay, is it going step by step? For example, when I introduce the problem in the first paragraph, so something could be like this, that in the introduction you introduce the problem, and then in the subsequent maybe in the first paragraph of the introduction, you introduce the domain, okay, and then within the domain you take the specific problem and you talk a little about the specific problem, and then in the next paragraph you talk about the problems or the challenges that the specific problem has, and then from there you talk about that what could be some solutions for this and what other researchers have done on this, and like this, in this way you present everything in a very sequential manner. You have the flow of information in a very sequential manner in the introduction section. So, and again, similar kind of advice goes for the methodology as well as the results and discussion also. So everywhere when you are trying to write the manuscript, when you are trying to frame the entire paper, you have to make sure that the idea that you are presenting or the information that you are presenting, they are in a logical manner, so that any person who is reading it can understand that what you have done step by step. Okay, it should start from A and it go to Z. Okay, it's not like that. It has you started with Z and then there is V in middle and then there is again E in middle and so on. Okay, the idea should start from number one idea and up to number, suppose say whatever the last idea. So it should go on in a very coherent manner. Okay, and whenever you are trying to draft the paper and revise it, make sure that you do not make any language mistakes. Okay, generally we are writing our manuscripts in English, so try to find out that you are not making any mistakes in the language uses, because sometimes because of improper language uses, the idea may be not communicated properly. Then comes once you have this drafting and the revision phase. So in this drafting and the revision phase, this is generally the phase which takes the most amount of time. Okay, here again, this drafting and revision phase itself is a very repetitive and iterative process. So first time when you when you write the entire manuscript, you write it down and then you again revise it. You again read the whole thing again and you revise it. And the next time when you read, you will find that okay, somewhere some sentences need to be added, or somewhere you find that some information you have mentioned multiple times. Maybe it is in the methodology section also, at the same time it is in the results section also. So those multiple instances of the same information, wherever you are writing it again, you need to minimize those parts where you are giving the same information again and again. So once you do that, then what you need to do is that you need to check it for you need to go to the next step, that is the editing phase. In the editing phase, mainly you do three things. You do the spelling check for the entire paper. Generally, the editing phase is also known as the proofreading phase. So here you do the spelling mistakes, you check for the spelling mistakes, you check for the grammar mistakes, and you check for the punctuation mistakes. So in this step, to help you, you can use the tools like, if you are using MS Word, in the MS Word itself, there is an inbuilt word checker and spell checker. All this kind of stuff is there, so you can use that option. And if sometimes this inbuilt tool is not that powerful, okay, sometimes it is not able to detect all the punctuation mistakes and all the grammar mistakes, though it detects all the spelling mistakes, but generally it is not able to detect all the grammar and the punctuation mistakes. So in that case, what you can do is that you can go for a software called Grammarly, Grammarly, Grammarly. So Grammarly, you can purchase the licensed version of Grammarly, but in fact, even without the licensed version also, you can work. Okay, let me show you the Grammarly. Okay, so even if you do not have the licensed version of the Grammarly, what you can do is that you can create a free account here in this Grammarly website. In this particular website, if you see here, I have a free account here. I've created a free account here. Once when I was a student and when I had access to funds by the university, I had a paid version of it, but I find that the free version also is as good as the paid version. Some features you are missing that are specifically present in the paid version, but overall the free version of the Grammarly is also very good enough. So what you should do is that you can go to this website www.grammarly.com and you can make a free account here through your Google or something. You can make a free account here. Once you do that, you go to this tab. Okay, once you have this particular in the Grammarly, you go to this tab. This is called the apps. Okay, in the apps, what you can do is that you can download this particular app. Okay, this is Grammarly for Microsoft Office. I have already installed, so it is showing for me reinstall, but for you it will show install, and for you it will not be active. Okay, so once you log in, you make an account here, you download this particular app, Grammarly for Microsoft Office, and you install it in your and you install it in your computer. So this is how it will look like. So let me show you one example. Just let me open a recent manuscript. Okay, suppose that this is a recent manuscript that I am in the process of writing. So once you have the software installed in your computer, in the MS Excel, in the MS Word itself, you will get this option. I hope you can see this option here. It says Open Grammarly. So what you can do is that you can, it will automatically get attached to the, it will automatically get synced with the MS Excel, sorry, MS Office. And every time you open MS Office or MS Word, what you will find is that the Grammarly is also available there. So when you want to check a document, after you have written the entire document, after you have used the review option, here is the review option. From here, you can do a spelling check and grammar check by the Microsoft itself. After you have done everything, after you have formalized it from your side, then you can go to the Grammarly. You can go to the Grammarly tab and you can switch on the Grammarly. So once you open the Grammarly here, it will start checking for all the different kinds of errors that are there in your particular manuscript. Okay, generally if it is a, since my one is a free version, so you will get the options like you will get the options for grammar, you will get the options for punctuation, as well as you will get the option for spelling mistake. There are other some options like the engagement, delivery, all this you do not get that, but overall I think whatever the free version is offering, that is good enough for us. And if you have the funds to purchase the entire version, it's well and good. And if you do not have, the free version is good enough. That is what I'm trying to say. So let us return to our PPT. So here in the next step, once you do all this thing, next step is to taking it up for the publication. In the publication phase, you select the suitable journal for your article, and then based on the, if there is any formatting requirements for the journal, then you format your particular manuscript in the format that the journal has specified, and then you can send it for publication. So this is the typical structure of any research article. So it has a particular abstract and it has an introduction, and then there is typically there is a literature review and the methodology and the results, the discussion, the conclusions, acknowledgement, and the references. Okay, so this is the typical hierarchy, or this is the typical structure of a research paper. We'll talk about this in detail in the next section. So here we generally suggest that you should follow a principle called the IMRAD, IMRAD. Okay, what does IMRAD mean? IMRAD means introduction, materials, results, and then discussion. Okay, so in the introduction part, okay, what you should do is that you should describe why you are doing this research and what is the background of this problem. You should detail the background of the problem, and you should write down the answer to why you are doing this particular work. Again, this literature review, for some papers it may be a separate entity after the introduction, and for some papers it may be again a combined entity of the introduction. Okay, then comes the methodology. Here you write down how, here you write down the answer to how, and how you are doing the research, and how you are trying to simulate the results, or how you are trying to do the experiment, or how you are trying to gather the data, that you mention here. Okay, the methodology part you answer here. And in the results, you detail, in the results you detail what you have found. Okay, what is the outcome of the project that you have done, and what are the results that you have got, or what are the outcomes of the experiments that you have got, or what are the outcomes of the analysis that you have done, you have got, that you discuss in the results section, in the what section. And in the discussion section, which is generally a part of the results and discussion, so in here you write down this so what. Okay, you write the answer to the question so what. So you are getting a particular result. Suppose say if you are increasing some parameter, some other parameter is also increasing. So what happens? So you have to give the idea or the interpretation of the results in this particular section. Okay, you give the interpretation here, and then finally you give the conclusion, where you write down some broad, you start with the basic statements of what the particular problem is, and then you write down that what is the methodology that you used, and what are the results that you got, and what could be the significance of these results. Like this, you write a small paragraph. Generally, it is less than 500 words. Okay, so the conclusion section is generally less than 500 words. Now, why should you follow this IMRAD principle? You should follow this IMRAD principle because it gives a logical flow to the contents. Okay, it makes everything, if a new reader, if a reader is reading and who is not a part of your project, he is reading this particular manuscript in this sequence, then he gets the entire idea immediately. Okay, or he understands the entire paper immediately. And it makes the if you follow this process, since everyone is following this process, so it makes the manuscripts of the journal very consistent and easy to read. And it provides the reader with a map so that he can easily go to the section where he is interested in. Suppose say someone is interested only in the methodology part of your particular paper. He might know the introduction. He might also be working in the same area that you are working. So he might already know the background of the problem. He might know already, might be with the literature review, but he's just interested to find out that what is the methodology that you have followed. So he can directly go to the methodology part and he can read the methodology, since it is detailed in such a way, or since it is segregated in such a way. Next, it reminds the author that what contents should be included in the article. Sometimes if you do not follow this particular step or this particular sequence, then you may forget to insert, suppose say literature review or some kind of methods you may forget. So if you follow this kind of a structure or this kind of a hierarchy, then the chances that you will forget some content to mention in the article is relatively less. And it also provides all contents needed for the work so that it can be replicated and reproduced. Okay. Now, what could be the possible sequence of a research article? So generally, I have seen many students, in fact, my own PhD students also I have seen like this. And in fact, my current MTech student is also started doing the same mistake, that he started writing the paper from the abstract, and then he was trying to go for the introduction, and then he was trying to follow this top-down approach. Okay, he was trying to follow this top-down approach. But this is not the correct approach when you are trying to write a research paper, specifically when you are trying to write a paper which is a quantitative research paper. Okay, where you are doing some kind of experiments or where you are doing some kind of simulations, and then at the end of the simulations you are getting some results and you are interpreting them. So in that case, you should follow this particular methodology here, or in this particular sequence. What you should do is that first you should write the methodology part. Why you should write the methodology part? Because that is the part you are most familiar with, because that is something that you are doing right now. As soon as you have finished the project, or as soon as you have, suppose say you have done 75% of the project, or as soon as you feel that you are ready to write down the research paper, you should start with the research paper. And whenever you start writing the research paper, you should start with the methodology, because the methodology is something that you have just done. You have just followed the methodology. So the entire steps are very visible and very distinct in your mind right now. So you should write down the methodology first, so that you do not miss any minute detail that you have, or any minute modifications that you have made to the methodology. Okay, so that is why you should write the methodology first, because that is the thing that you have completed. Okay, you are already clear about that thing. You have already followed the methodology, so you can write down that particular part. Again, writing down the methodology part is also good, because since if you write the methodology part, and since this part doesn't need any other further knowledge, means it doesn't need any reference to the literature review, or it doesn't need any interpretation, because it is what it is, right? You have done the method and you are just writing whatever the method you follow. So that is why it can be written very quickly. The methodology part can be written very quickly. And so if you write down the methodology part, you will also get a kind of boost in the momentum, in terms of the fact that, say, you will feel that, okay, I have already completed one section, let me complete another section. So that kind of motivation also you will get once you finish the methodology part. Next, you should go for the results and discussion, because once you have got the results, you need to write down all the results that you have got. Okay, you need to first figure out that this and this graphs I am going to give, and this and this results in the tabular form I am going to give, and this and this figures, or this and this graphs I am going to give. So that you first plot, and that you first structure the tables and the figures and the tables, and then based on that figures and the tables, you write down the results. Okay, don't worry about writing the discussion first write down all the results. Okay, once you have write down all the results, then you try to arrange your results so that they are coherent. Okay, first don't worry about even writing down in the in a sequential form. What you should try to do is that this is the method that I follow. For example, Let me give one example. I don't know whether, okay, I'll take this example only. So generally, since again, this is true for both all kinds of papers, simulation-based papers or for experimental papers or survey-based paper. So once the first thing that I try to do is that I try to write down the methodology part. If you see this methodology part, I'm already clear about whatever I have done. So I'll write down I will draw the proper drawings for this methodology part. Suppose say this is my experimental setup. Since I thought that if I take a photograph of this particular setup, it is not that visible. So I thought that let me draw a schematic diagram. So I draw a schematic diagram. Next thing, I take some photos of the experiments that I have done and I put it here. And the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to detail out the methodology that I followed in form of a flowchart. If it is applicable for you, you can do that. I draw a flowchart and I detail out the methodology here. So once you draw the methodology part, once you give the flowchart, then it is very easy for you to write down the methodology part. Okay. And it is very easy for the readers also to understand the methodology. Next, when I come to the result section, what I try to do is that first I try to give these headings. Okay, suppose say I am going to write about the microstructural examination, then I am going to write about the optimization part. Okay, suppose say here if you see I am going to write about this particular lab shear strength part. Okay, then I am going to write about this. So these first headings I put in first. Okay, then within the headings what I try to do is that I try to put in all the graphs and the tables that belong to that particular heading. Okay, so I put in all the tables and the graphs. So once you have the okay, I will show you another example. I think in because this paper is already written, so if I can show you another example, let me go and show you another paper that I'm writing with Dr. Ranjan. I think this is the paper. So suppose say this is the general methodology that I follow. Okay, so suppose say the title I have decided, or this is kind of the rough title. This is going to change later. This title I have just put in so that every time, because I'm working on multiple papers, so that every time I read the title, I get an idea that okay, this is what I'm trying to work on. Then I try to give the headings like this: abstract, keywords, introduction. Again, introduction I tend to write it last, but since this introduction is again something that I have used in a conference paper, so I have just put in these general sentences here, and if you can see here, I have highlighted the task here. Okay, that I have to write about the various process parameters and responses here, and these are the tasks that I have given here. Okay, that this is going to be opening 2-3 lines, and this 2-3 lines, it sometimes what happens is that when you are doing something, this kind of lines come to your mind, and you think that okay, this is going to be a good opening line for my manuscript. In that sense, I have written down this introduction, but I have actually not written this introduction. Okay, I have just, this is a particular line that came to my mind, and I thought that this is going to be a good introduction, a good introduction line. So I put that line here, and depending on, again, these are all the lines that come into my mind, but these are right now, these are not in a very coherent manner. Okay, because right now I am in the writing part. Okay, so here if you see, I start with the methodology. Since I have already completed the methodology, I know the experimental details. Immediately I have written it down. It may not be the final part, but I have written it down. Again, since again I use some kind of color schemes. Okay, let me just, I use this kind of color schemes to say to myself and my co-workers that this black part is kind of finalized now, because this is something that I have read multiple times, and I am pretty confident with this part. Okay, then there comes something, I use the red color scheme where I have predominantly written the this part, but I am still worried that it is not coherent now, or it is not the final finished product. So it is going to be in red color for me. Similarly, this is a part which is again in black color for me, because this is again coherent and this is finished for me. Okay, this is the final product from my side. So like this, you first write down the methodology part. So as you see, you have written the methodology part, and then in the results and discussion section, what I have done is that I have listed out all the subheadings that is going to be there. I have listed out, this is one subheading, this is one subheading, this is another subheading, and so on. And in here, you can see that I use a different color scheme. For example, I'm using green here. So it means I'm still writing it, and I am pretty confident with this particular line. So you can see that there are multiple lines which are not finished or which are ongoing. Okay, and the discussion itself is not finished. Okay, the results itself is not finished. I've just written some lines here. Okay. Next, again here also I have written whatever the lines I feel that have come to my mind. Right now it is not in a very sequential order. Okay. So next, the first thing that I try to do in the results and discussion section is that I try to give all the data here, or all the tables and the figures here. So once I have the figure, for example, this figure I have. So I'm not going to think about the entire manuscript now. I'm going to think about only this particular figure, and I'm going to write down the results that I'm seeing in this particular figure, or suppose say the next figure which is again related to it, depending on whatever the figures are there. Suppose say this one, figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3. Okay, they belong to one central idea. Then I will look at figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3 all together, and I will try to write a small paragraph on figure 1, figure 2, figure 3 without worrying about the entire manuscript. Next, I know that figure 4 and figure 5 are figure 5 are and figure 6 are related to the same topic. So I'll write another paragraph on figure 4, figure 5, and figure 6 without thinking about the entire manuscript. So like this, I will first write individual paragraphs, and then after I have the individual paragraphs detailing the results, I will put them in their proper section. For example, GP metabolic is one subsection. I will put the relevant results here. I will put the relevant results for this section here, for the next section here. I will not worry about coherence or the continuity in this part. Okay. So next, what I will try to do is that once I have all these ideas, then I will try to find out what are the results that I have provided, and now then I will try to give the discussion. Okay. Then I will try to discuss that, okay, this is happening, maybe the reason for this is this. So like this, I try to give the discussion. And once I have done with the results and the discussion like this individually, on an individual level, when I'm done with the results and discussion, then I will try to arrange the entire results and discussion section, and then I will add in another filler statements. Filler statements are nothing that link the previous idea with the next idea. Okay, since I was writing all these particular results in the isolated kind of events, for example, I was seeing at a couple of figures and I was writing the discussion on them. Again, I was seeing some other 2-3 figures and I was writing a discussion on them. To connect them, you need some kind of filler statements. So once you are done with the entire results and you have written the discussion, then you write down the filler sections, filler sentences. And these filler sentences, they generally, what they do is that they link one section to the other section, or they link one paragraph to the other paragraph. And whenever I feel that based on this logical sequence, I need to modify some sentences in the previously written part also, I modify them. And then in this way, the results and discussion section is done. After I do that, then I try to write down the introduction section. So in the introduction section, I try to project the results and discussion that I get, the results that I got, and the interpretation that I got. I try to give some related material to it in the introduction. Okay, that if I know that this is the outcome of my study, or this is the discussion of my study, or this is the outcome of my study, I know that. And I try to find out suitable researchers which say that this is the problem, or this is the particular unsolved problem, or this is the particular phenomena because of which it is happening. So I try to give that in the introduction, so that when the author later reads, when the reader later reads the entire manuscript, he is not going to read in this way. He is going to read the introduction first, right? So when he is going to read the introduction, he is going to come to know about the problems that my domain is having, or this particular research problem is having. And then he is going to read about all the what other researchers have done. And so when he is going logically, when he's reading the entire paper step by step, when he is going to find my results and discussion section, in my results and discussion section, he is going to find the answers to some of the problems that I mentioned in the introduction section. So he is going to feel satisfied in the manner that, okay, this particular author or this particular researcher, he has mentioned the problems in his introduction section that the other researchers are facing, and here in the results and discussion, he has given some meaningful contribution from his side to avoid those problems or to solve those problems. Okay, and then you write the conclusion section, because once you are done with the entire introduction, as well as the introduction basically means the literature review part also. Okay, so once you have done with these 3 sections, then you write down the conclusion, that based on the problems that you discuss in the introduction, or the lacunas in the literature that you discuss in the introduction, and the discussions and the results and the discussions that you have got, what is your conclusion, that you write it down. And then you write down the abstract, because the abstract is like the ad of the entire paper, or it is the advertisement of the entire paper. So you write down the abstract, and then you write down the relevant keywords, and finally you finalize the title depending on which particular journal or which particular group of researchers you are going to target. Based on that, you write a very catchy kind of title. Okay, on all these steps we are going to discuss a little more. I'm going to conclude this session now, but we are on all the steps we are going to discuss a little more. We are going to see the I'm going to also give you some tips regarding how you can target each and every one of this particular section. Thank you.